Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm working on a repainting from one of my pieces from last Inktober. So that's Inktober 2016. And this actually has a purpose, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. But I will show a little picture of the one that I am repainting, the original from last year. And I was looking through options for which one I should do. And there are a lot of them that I still do similar themes and similar looks. And actually, that was the first pass that I did do a little while ago. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. But I decided this time to choose one of the ones that was a little bit out there as far as how I formulaically work. I wanted to find one that I could push myself with the composition, with the color palette, and all this stuff. So I did end up choosing Day 25, which is one that was not immediately one that would jump out to me, but I really wanted to be able to find a way to adapt it into the skill set that I have now, as well as pushing the composition. So this one was a really fun challenge because it was an interesting concept, an interesting color palette. So immediately it gave me a lot of ideas and a place that I could move forward from. But I do want to give a really quick thank you to Squarespace. They are sponsoring this video and helping make this what it is. I am currently working on my website. I am in a work in progress, but I'm really excited with how incredibly seamless it is as far as working on making all of my artwork adapt into this website and make it really beautiful and cleanly designed. That is actually something that I do struggle with a lot as far as graphic design and making it look good. So I've been really happy with the results and how intuitive it is to work with. So this is a great place to go to if you want to be able to host your very professional looking portfolio, if you want to create a store online, or really any way to show off any projects that you're working on. Squarespace is a great place to go for that. I do have a code actually for you guys that'll give you 10% off your first purchase with them, and that's just using my name. I'll also have a link down in the description. So Danica is the code. There's a link again in the description that'll take you over there. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about this piece. Okay, so I decided to go in with 3 micron colors for this one. So the original that I'm working off of, I believe it might have been with a brush pen. I can't quite remember, but it was all with black ink. And I used colored ink for basically the watercolor effect to paint it in. And that was one of the biggest and actually pretty recent developments I've made that has really improved a lot of my work, is working with colored line work. So I love line work. I love art with line work. So it's something that I really wanted to find a way to begin adapting it into more dynamic illustrations. So I went in with 3 different colors. I chose to go in with this vibrant lighter blue for her hair, and then pretty much anything else was all this dark turquoise ink. It was almost a black, but not quite. It looks really close, but I think it does actually soften it up quite a bit, and it's much better than going in with a very stark black. And I did go in with black for just her eyes, just to give it a little bit more depth to it. And then I went back over it with the blue so that it has just a tinge of that blue to it, but it's darker than the rest of it. And I was very happy that going into this, I had a very strong color palette, but also a very simple one that I could adapt very easily into this new illustration. And because I have green and purple for the main colors in this piece, well, pretty much the only colors in this piece, I went with a blue micron color for pretty much all of them, because that way it's very close to purple, but it's also close to blue, and it has this unifying factor to it, and it adds a new element and a new layer to it while still being very homogeneous with the color palette. So I felt like that was a nice happy medium, and I really do like the effect that it ends up having. One more note about the line work though, I decided to give the bottle in her hand a different effect. I thought that I was going to do a little bit more with it to make it more unique from the bottles that are tied up in her hair. So I went in with a very light and vibrant green micron pen, and everything else in the background, all those bottles were inked with the same dark blue-green that I did with the character. And in the end, the bottle in her hand, I just ended up painting like all the other ones. But because it's a lot closer, but it's lighter, it just kind of has a little bit of a disconnect with how it should have happened. What I should have done is I should have done the bottle in her hand with the darker color and the bottles in the background with that light green. I think it would have been really great with pushing those back and creating more depth. That is something that I had to find a way to adapt it a little bit. So I ended up going with a glaze that was a light blue over all of the green. Actually, that's a lie. I mixed it as a light blue, but I swatched it a little bit and I didn't like that it brought it too far away from the green. I ended up mixing a very vibrant green, that is, and then I went back over the background as well as the farther tendrils of hair and bottles, and I glazed over all of that, so it gave it this greenness that grouped it a little bit more in the background rather than being completely grouped in with all the front hair. But I do think that's one thing that I could have really improved on in this piece is I could have paid a little bit more attention to making sure that those, I say they're like farther away tendrils. I imagine them more as they're going back and stringing along other things in the background so that they're twisted up and suspended like that. I wish that I had pushed them farther back, made them a little bit more cool or green to group with the background, just to give 3 different depths to this piece. There would be the green background, the farther away hair, and then the foreground of this character. But again, that's just something to live and learn and figure out. I do really love when I am able to accomplish depth within the way that I enact the colors in the piece. So it's a thing to remember and a thing to plan for at the very beginning. I find that sometimes I am able to get the effect that I want by glazing with a blue color, or usually it's a blue, because actually that's an atmospheric effect. The farther away things are, the bluer they appear. But that usually helps, but it's a lot better when I'm able to plan for it from the very beginning. But I kind of missed that step where I went right in and I painted pretty much all of her hair with the same value and the same color. But if I had started from the beginning and made those much more bluer or much more green to group at the background, like I mentioned, it would have given it more separation, and I think I would have liked that a little bit more. And I had to really try to pay attention to how I was grouping the values in this piece. So when I first did that mid-tone layer for her hair, it pretty much exactly matched the value of the background. So they're both the same level of lightness, pretty much very close. And the hard thing with that is that it becomes a lot harder to read your image and to see what exactly is going on. And to give it a lot of power, you need to have a lot of strong contrast in the values themselves, at least as a general rule for being able to make things pop. And I found that I tend to accidentally mix my colors in a pretty much the same value repeatedly. I always use a little test scrap of paper to make sure that it's the right color that I mix, but sometimes I forget to pay attention to that. But the hair, I was able to mostly break it away from the background by adding the shadow, and I knew that that would be added, but I would like it to be less of a layered to get to that final result and more of a, I knew that that was going to be the plan and I knew that that's how it was going to stand out. Where this one, it was more as a reaction to it blending in too much to the background rather than the end goal being that value and that mix of values of the mid-tone and the shadows in her hair to get it to stand out, if that makes sense. Basically, I just want to be a little bit more planned with the values and the placement and what things are going to be high key and what things are going to be low key so that I can make sure that everything stands out the way it needs to be. And one of my favorite details is working on these bottles. I love being able to create glass-like effects. So what I did was I just went in with the color, but I didn't fill it all the way into the edges of any of the panes of glass or the sides of it. And I had several different colors mixed together where I had a little bit more of a dark blue-green on all of the right sides of the bottles, that is, and a little bit more of a yellow green and a lighter color on the other sides of it. And this was just really very fun, and I loved being able to incorporate a slightly different color of green into this so that they still grouped with the background and there was still a really duality to the colors. It fit with the green, but it added another element of interest to it, especially since it's a little bit more of a yellow green, which just looks really nice with the purple. I love how that pulls away from it. So adding these variations in colors like that, I find just add a lot of interest to a piece where normally it could be very mundane and monotonous. That's one of the things that it wasn't an issue, but with my first piece, I was using 2 different fountain pen inks that I had diluted, so I only had 2 available colors, period. I couldn't add in any variation, and this time around I have the benefit of being able to mix my colors. I'm using watercolor, so I can make them exactly the way I want. So that was something that I was able to push a little bit more with this piece, is just the mixture of colors, so that there's just a little bit more variety to it, so it's a little bit more interest. But I just want to give one quick thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. They are a great place to go get your websites, your domains, and your online store set up. I, again, am very much enjoying my process of getting my portfolio all cleaned up and buttoned up. It's been a very seamless process for me. And again, I do have a link that'll take you over there. There's one down in my description, and that'll give you 10% off your first purchase with Squarespace so that you can get your website set up and your portfolio set up. And that is it for today. As always, I do have prints of her available as well as the original. There is a link in the description that'll take you over to my art shop. But that is it for today, so I'll see you guys next time. That'll be Wednesday. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you then.